I'm Tracy Bell, a 19-year-old nurse grinding through night shifts at Rapid City Regional Hospital in South Dakota at 1 a.m. in our outer suburb home near the Black Hills. My stepsister kicked my bedroom door open. Her eyes burned with rage and liquor. A screwdriver clutched tight in her fist. Before I could react, she lunged, pain seared through my shoulder as the tool struck, grazing 2 centimeters from my heart. I screamed, pinned to the wall, my world tilting. My father and stepmother burst in. I begged with my eyes for help, but my stepmother smirked her signature fake sweetness. Tracy. "Stop being dramatic," she said. My father nodded, arms crossed. "She's just drunk. You always make a scene." Their laughter hit harder than the injury. They stood there, mocking me, as if my pain was a punchline, with my good hand shaking. I grabbed my phone and typed SOS, a desperate signal not just for rescue, but for justice. As my vision blurred, I swore their betrayal would unravel their world. That courtroom would soon explode with the truth. If your own family ever dismissed your pain like it was nothing, smash that like button and drop justice in the comments. Show the world you stand with those who fight back against the ones who should have protected them. When I woke up in Rapid City Regional Hospital, the sterile smell hit me first. A doctor leaned over, his voice low but firm. "Tracy, you're lucky to be alive. The screwdriver missed your heart by 2 centimeters, but there's a risk of nerve damage in your shoulder." I nodded, the painkillers dulling the ache but not the betrayal. My father, Michael Foster, and stepmother, Shannon Burke, never showed up. The nurse told me they called, claiming I brought this on myself and always played the victim. My stepsister, Julie Knox, wasn't even mentioned, like her attack was just another Tuesday. Lying there, staring at the ceiling tiles. My mind drifted back to when I was 15, 4 years ago, in our house near the Black Hills. It was a Sunday family dinner, the kind where the table was set to impress, but the air was thick with tension. I'd just gotten a scholarship letter for a pre-med program, a ticket to become a nurse. My dream since I was a kid watching hospital shows with Grandpa. I held up the letter, my hands shaking with pride, expecting cheers or at least a nod from Dad. Instead, Shannon leaned back in her chair, her smile sharp as a blade. "Oh, Tracy, isn't that one of those programs for special needs kids?" Her voice dripped with fake pity, loud enough for Julie to snicker across the table. My face burned. I looked to Dad, waiting for him to correct her, to say something, anything. He just stared at his plate, cutting his steak like I wasn't even there. Julie chimed in. "Yeah, Tracy. Did you beg for it or what?" The room laughed, their voices blending into a cruel hum. I stammered, trying to explain it was a merit scholarship, top of my class. But Shannon waved her hand, cutting me off. "Don't ruin the night with your drama," she said. Dad finally looked up, his eyes tired but cold. "Tracy, apologize to your mom for making a scene." Mom, that word felt like a slap. I'd never called Shannon that she didn't deserve it. But Dad's voice had that final tone, the one that said I'd lose if I fought. I stood, my chair scraping the floor. "I'm not sorry," I said, voice low but steady. Their eyes widened, like I'd broken some unspoken rule. I grabbed the scholarship letter, my hands trembling not from fear, but from rage. In my room, I tore it to pieces, each rip a promise to myself. I wouldn't beg for their approval. I'd save myself, no matter what it took. Back in the hospital. The memory stung as much as the stitches in my shoulder. The nurse handed me my phone, still open to the SOS I'd sent. Michael and Shannon thought they could bury this, like they buried my pride at 15. They were wrong. That scholarship wasn't the end, it was the start of my fight. I'd learned early that family wasn't blood, it was who showed up, and they never did. The doctor came back, checking my chart. "You'll need physical therapy," he said, "but you're strong. You'll pull through." I nodded, but my mind was already elsewhere, replaying that dinner, the laughter, the silence. I wasn't just healing a shoulder, I was building armor. Julie's attack wasn't random, it was the explosion of years of resentment, fueled by Shannon's poison and Dad's cowardice. I closed my eyes, gripping the hospital blanket. They'd underestimated me before. They wouldn't again. 3 months after leaving the hospital. I started nurse training at Rapid City Regional, chasing the dream I'd clung to since I was 16. The night shifts were brutal long hours, endless patients, and the constant beep of monitors that felt like a pulse I couldn't escape. My shoulder still ached from the injury, a dull reminder of Julie's screwdriver, but the real pain was in my head. Every quiet moment, I heard Shannon's voice sneering, "You're nothing." Tracy. Julie's laugh echoed, sharp and mocking, like it did at that dinner when I was 15. The PTSD wasn't just a label, it was a weight, dragging me back to that house near the Black Hills every time I closed my eyes. I fumbled through my first shifts, hands shaking as I checked IV lines or updated charts. One night, I nearly dropped a tray of supplies when a patient's yell sounded too much like Shannon's. I froze, heart pounding, until a calm voice cut through. "Hey, you got this. Slow down." It was Erin Wade, a senior nurse with steady eyes and a no-nonsense tone. She was in her late 20s, with a knack for spotting when I was spiraling. She didn't baby me, just handed me a chart and said, "Focus on the task, one step at a time." Erin became my anchor. During breaks, she'd share tips over bad hospital coffee, teaching me how to stay sharp under pressure. One evening, after a grueling 12-hour shift, she invited me to her place, a small house just outside Rapid City with a view of the Black Hills, over takeout pizza. She opened up about her own past, growing up with an abusive stepfather who'd belittle her every chance he got. "I got out because I refused to let his words define me," she said. Her voice steady but raw. "You're stronger than you think, Tracy, but you need to fight smart." She leaned forward, her eyes locking on mine. "Document everything, every slight, every threat, every move they make against you. Data is ammunition." I nodded, her words sinking in like a lifeline. Erin reached into a drawer and pulled out a leather journal, worn but sturdy. "Write it down," she said. "Dates, times, witnesses, photos. Build your case. They won't see it coming." I took the journal, running my fingers over its cover, feeling a spark of control for the first time in years. The next shift, I faced my first real test, a code blue, in the ER. A patient flatlined, and the room erupted, doctors shouting, monitors screaming. My hands shook, Shannon's voice whispering, "You'll fail." But I pictured Erin's steady gaze, her words about focus. I grabbed the crash cart, handed the doctor the paddles, and moved like I'd been trained for this moment. We saved the patient. As the team exhaled, Erin gave me a nod from across the room. "Told you," she mouthed, that night. Driving home under the South Dakota stars, I clutched the journal in my lap. I wasn't just training to be a nurse, I was training to take back my life. Shannon and Julie thought they could break me, like they did at that dinner table. Michael thought his silence could keep the peace. They were wrong. I opened the journal and wrote my first entry, day 1. "I'm not nothing. I'm building something they can't touch." Erin's words stuck with me. Every shift, every patient, every moment I didn't crack was proof I was more than their lies. The hospital wasn't just a job, it was my battleground. I'd face those night shifts, the PTSD, the echoes of their voices, and I'd win. Not for them, for me. 6 months after my last shift, I was charting patient records at Rapid City Regional when my phone buzzed with Shannon's name. Her voice cracked, thick with fake tears, claiming Michael had a stroke and only days left. She said he wanted to apologize. Guilt clawed at me. Memories of Dad teaching me to ride a bike flickered, tugging at the hope he might still care, despite everything. I booked a flight, convincing myself this could be a chance to mend something in our fractured family near the Black Hills. I stepped into the backyard on a sunny Saturday, the air heavy with charcoal smoke. Michael stood at the grill, flipping burgers, his laugh loud with neighbors. No stroke, no hospital bed, just a lie. My chest tightened, betrayal sinking in like a blade. Shannon hurried over, her smile too bright. Arms open like we were close, she led me inside, where a stack of papers waited on the kitchen table. "We need you to sign these," she said, her voice syrupy. "Family debt, your dad's medical bills." I scanned the documents, not medical bills, but a loan tied to a credit line in my name. My hands shook, not from fear, but rage. Michael avoided my eyes. focused on his burger. Julie sauntered in, her designer purse swinging, a smug grin curling her lips. The pieces snapped together. This was her mess, not Dad's, that night, in my old bedroom. I rummaged through a pile of unopened mail. Credit card statements stared back. Stamped with my name, but not my purchases, $15,000 in debt, charges for luxury clothes, spa trips, jewelry, all traced to Julie. She'd stolen my identity, likely with Shannon's nudge. I grabbed Erin's journal, snapping photos of every statement, my fingers steady despite the fury boiling inside. The next morning, Shannon blocked my path in the hallway, her eyes cold. Sign the papers. Tracy, or you'll regret being ungrateful. I slid my phone into my pocket, the recorder already running, capturing her venom. She didn't notice, too busy glaring. I kept my face blank, nodding like I'd comply. But my mind was racing. Every word she spoke was another nail in their coffin. Julie's sabotage started small, but deliberate. One afternoon, I found my nursing textbook soaked in coffee, the pages ruined, her oops smirk giving her away. The next day, my car keys disappeared from the counter. I found them hours later, buried in the kitchen trash under rotting leftovers. I didn't scream or confront her. Instead, I photographed the books, the keys, the timestamps clear in Erin's journal. Each act was another piece of my growing arsenal. Late at night, I called Erin from the bathroom, door locked to muffle my voice. I told her about the fake stroke, Julie's debt, Shannon's threat. She listened, then said, "Keep going. Every photo, every recording, they're your weapon." Her words fueled me. I added entries to the journal dates, details, evidence piling up like bricks for a wall they couldn't climb. By the end of the week, my folder brimmed with proof credit statements, photos of ruined books, recordings of Shannon's threats. I didn't touch their loan papers. Packing my bag, I felt a shift inside, like a storm settling into resolve. They thought they could trap me again, like that dinner when I was 15. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I was setting a trap of my own, one they'd walk into blind. 3 days later, I stood in the backyard of our house near the Black Hills, my packed bag slung over my shoulder. Julie knelt by a metal fire pit, a manic glint in her eyes as she tossed my nursing diploma, 4 years of blood, sweat, and night shifts into the flames. The paper curled and blackened. Next went a faded photo of Grandpa, the only person who'd ever seen me as enough. His smile swallowed by the fire. Finally. She held up Erin's journal, my lifeline of evidence, and let it burn. The smoke stung my eyes, but I didn't flinch. This wasn't just destruction, it was war. Michael grabbed my arms, his grip bruising, pinning me against the fence. "You're not going anywhere," he growled. "Your future belongs to this family." Shannon stood nearby, her phone raised, recording the scene with a twisted grin. "This'll look great on Facebook," she said, her voice dripping with glee. I struggled, my shoulder throbbing from the old injury, but Michael's hands tightened, his face blank, like I was a stranger, across the fence. I caught a glimpse of Mr. Joseph Bell, our retired neighbor, his phone subtly aimed at the fire pit. His eyes met mine, steady and knowing, recording every second. Julie didn't notice, too busy fanning the flames. Shannon was lost in her video, oblivious. My heart raced not from fear, but from a spark of hope. Their arrogance was my opening. I twisted hard, breaking free from Michael's grip, my bag hitting the ground, standing tall. I faced them, my voice ice cold. "This was your last mistake." Julie froze, the fire crackling behind her. Shannon lowered her phone, her smirk fading. Michael's hands dropped, his jaw tight. I didn't wait for their response. I grabbed my bag and ran to my car, the gravel crunching under my boots, locked inside. I called Erin, my hands shaking but my mind clear. They burned everything: my diploma, Grandpa's photo, the journal, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos. Erin didn't hesitate. "You've got enough evidence already. I know someone who can help. Daniel Hart, he's a lawyer who eats cases like this for breakfast." She gave me his number, her voice a lifeline. "Don't let them break you." "Tracy, you're close." I dialed Daniel Hart, a civil attorney with a reputation for dismantling family fraud. His voice was calm but sharp, cutting through my adrenaline. I explained the fire, the debt, the recordings, the photos of Julie's sabotage. He listened, then said he'd meet me in Rapid City the next day. They think they've won, he said. Let's turn the tables, driving away. I glanced in the rearview mirror. The fire pit glowed in the dusk, a symbol of their attempt to erase me, but they didn't know about the credit statements, the recordings, the photos I'd saved. Mr. Joseph Bell's video was the final piece. My chest tightened, not with pain, but with purpose. They'd tried to trap me, like they did when I was 15, like they did with their fake stroke lie. But I wasn't running anymore. I was fighting. The next morning, I walked into Daniel's office in downtown Rapid City, my folder of evidence heavy in my hands. Inside were Mr. Bell's video of the fire pit, hospital records from Julie's screwdriver attack, Shannon's recorded threats, and credit card statements showing $15,000 in stolen debt. Daniel. His suit pressed and eyes focused, flipped through each item, his nod confirming their strength. He'd set up a mediation session at the courthouse, framed as a chance to resolve the family debt, Michael, Shannon, and Julie thought they'd walk away clean. I knew better. The mediation room felt like a pressure cooker. I sat across from them, my face a mask of calm, while Daniel arranged his laptop and files. Michael slumped in his chair, staring at his hands. Shannon twisted a tissue, her usual charm replaced by nervous glances. Julie leaned back, arms crossed, her smirk challenging me to make a move. The mediator, a sharp-eyed woman with gray streaks in her hair, laid out the agenda address, the loan documents, and my claims of fraud. I stayed still, letting Daniel take control. He began with the hospital records, projecting notes about the screwdriver attack that nearly ended my life. Julie shifted uncomfortably, her fingers tapping the table. Next, he played Shannon's recording, her voice sharp and venomous, demanding I sign papers or face regret. Shannon's hands froze, her tissue dropping to the floor. Michael's face hardened, but he didn't look up. Daniel moved to the credit statements, each one flashing on the screen luxury purchases Julie made in my name. She slammed her fist on the table, her face red. But I kept my eyes locked on hers, unflinching. Then came Mr. Bell's video. The projector lit up, showing the fire pit consuming my diploma and Grandpa's photo. Julie's laughter echoing as she tossed in my journal. Michael's hands pinned me against the fence, his grip unyielding. Shannon's phone captured her gloating, oblivious to her own exposure. The room erupted gas from the mediator's team, murmurs from court staff. The judge banged her gavel, her voice slicing through. Order she commanded, silencing the chaos. Shannon's composure crumbled, tears streaming as she clutched the table, her eyes pleading for mercy. Julie's smirk vanished, her hands trembling as she scanned the room for an escape. Michael sat rigid, his knuckles white, unable to meet anyone's gaze. I stood, my voice steady, my heart cold. I didn't need words, their defeat was written in their faces. I'd given them chances years ago. At that dinner table when I was 15, in the hospital after Julie's attack, they'd chosen to burn my future. Now they'd pay. Daniel presented the settlement terms: vacate the house in 30 days, a no-contact order, and Julie to face charges for identity theft and assault. Shannon's tears stopped, her face pale as she realized the trap. Julie glared at me, her hands balled into fists, but she had no defense. Michael reached for the pen first, his signature shaky on the document. Julie followed, her pen scraping the paper like a surrender. Shannon hesitated, her fingers hovering, but the weight of the evidence crushed her resolve. She signed, her hand trembling, leaving the courthouse. I felt the chains of my past snap. The evidence, every photo, every recording had dismantled their lies. Daniel walked beside me, his voice low. You built a fortress with this case. Tracy, I nodded, the courthouse steps firm under my boots. They thought they could erase me, like they burned my diploma, but I'd turned their fire into my weapon, and they'd never recover. 6 months later, I stood on the cracked steps of our old house near the Black Hills, the South Dakota wind sharp against my skin. Movers hauled furniture into a truck, their boots crunching gravel as the foreclosure finalized. The house, once a prison of memories, was no longer Michael's. He'd lost everything: his home, his marriage to Shannon, his place in the community. Julie sat in a cell at the South Dakota State Penitentiary, serving 8 years for aggravated assault. Her release date not until 2030. Her designer bags were gone, replaced by a gray jumpsuit and a number. Shannon, sentenced to 2 years of probation for fraud, faced a bleaker fate, her bank accounts empty. Her name a whisper of scorn among neighbors who once shared her coffee. Michael tried texting me, his messages piling up with hollow apologies. I blocked him, my finger pressing the screen with a calm finality, cutting the last thread to that life. I sold the house for a modest sum, enough to fund a new chapter. With a single suitcase, I moved to New York City, trading Rapid City's quiet hills for a skyline that pulsed with possibility. The sale proceeds became the seed for the Phoenix Project, my nonprofit dedicated to abuse survivors. I rented a small office in Brooklyn, its walls bare but buzzing with purpose. Days were spent meeting with volunteers, drafting grant applications, and connecting with shelters to build a network for those trapped by fear, as I once was. I pored over budgets late into the night, my laptop glowing in the dim apartment, each spreadsheet a brick in a foundation they couldn't destroy. At the same time, I enrolled in a master's in nursing program at NYU. My evenings filled with textbooks and lecture notes spread across a cluttered desk. The coursework was grueling advanced pathophysiology, leadership seminars, but every page turned was a step toward a future I'd fought for. Hospitals across the city invited me to speak. My story of surviving Julie's attack and Shannon's betrayal striking a chord with nurses who'd faced their own struggles. Standing at podiums in sterile conference rooms, I recounted the nights I'd spent trembling in Rapid City, the screwdriver's sting, the fire that consumed my diploma. My voice grew steadier with each talk, my scars a map of resilience. Audiences leaned in, some nodding, others wiping tears, as I spoke of rebuilding from nothing. One crisp evening, walking through Central Park, the leaves golden under streetlights, I thought of Grandpa, years ago, on a hike through the Black Hills. He'd stopped by a stream, his eyes warm as he said, "Strength comes from choosing freedom." He'd seen me when Michael ignored me, when Shannon sneered, when Julie laughed. That memory became my anchor, grounding me through every grant rejection, every late-night study session, every moment I doubted myself. I carried his words into the Phoenix Project, into my speeches, into the quiet moments when I stared at New York's skyline, knowing my worth was mine alone to define. A letter arrived one morning, postmarked from the penitentiary. Julie's handwriting sprawled across the page, her words claiming regret, asking for forgiveness. I held it over a flickering candle in my apartment, the flame catching the edges. "I don't need closure from them. I found it within myself," I said, my voice soft but unshakable. The paper burned, ash crumbling into the sink. I didn't read beyond the first line. Her apologies were weightless, a final attempt to claw back control. I let them turn to dust. Standing at my window, the city's lights stretching endless below, I felt peace settle in. No contact was my boundary, a line drawn in stone. Julie's prison cell, Shannon's ruin. Michael's isolation, they'd faced their consequences. I'd faced mine, but I'd chosen to rise. The Phoenix Project grew, its first clients finding hope in our workshops. My master's degree inched closer. Each exam a victory. Grandpa's words echoed, a quiet strength no one could burn away. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you for staying until the end. Tracy chose not to forgive, finding peace through boundaries. What do you think? Share your thoughts below. Tracy chose not to forgive. Do you agree? Comment your opinions.